Thanks for joining me here, Noob Aquatics. At the moment right now, we're all out of power. And this is one of those times when people wonder, how am I going to protect and save my fish? Well, let's just say that you're in a situation like me where you didn't quite have all of the gear you needed. So one thing I did notice is that I had things that were built for minnows. Minnow buckets use aerators just like anywhere else. So what we're doing right now is we're actually using these aerators, and I'll show you. Aerator there, aerator here. We got them on all our tanks, everywhere. This is one thing that you got to make sure that you have. So what we're gonna do is after this, when the power comes back on and we've used hundreds of batteries, and I do apologize for the darkness here. I'm trying to get in better light, but we're going to probably use hundreds of batteries until the power comes back on here in Ohio, where the temperatures are in the hundreds and more than 200,000 people or somewhere close to there is out of power right now due to what they're saying is lightning strikes that happened several days ago and hundreds of telephone poles and lines that are down. But some of the biggest issues here is keeping fish alive. So some tips that you'll want to make sure that you follow. If you can, don't feed your fish, because if you feed your fish, their metabolism will keep at the same steady rate, and when you do that, then when your fish are at a high metabolism, they consume more oxygen, because your fish really don't know any difference. Your fish are in an area where they are expecting oxygen to be, and without air, if you don't have air stones in there going or any movement breaking the surface of the water, then your fish could die pretty quickly. So it's very important to make sure that you have some kind of backup system for your tanks if there is a power outage. So like I said, some of the things you can use are things like aerators that are built for minnow buckets, and they don't even have to be that big. We're using small ones. It's just something that breaks surface agitation. Now again, I plan on buying bigger ones because I don't want to be caught in this mess again. But there are some other things that you can do, and I'm going to show you here some other things that you can do to help break surface agitation on your water so that you can add some oxygen to your tank. So let me show you one other technique that can be used. Now this has to be done several times every 10 to 15 minutes, and it's let's just say it's a last resort. It's going to take up your entire day. So let me show you what you can do. So you're going to take cups like this. Alright. So you're going to take plastic cups like this. Just fill it with water. Pour it from about 6 feet away. So just take it, fill it with water, pour it back in the tank about 6 feet away. Just to clarify real quick, I am saying 6 feet, but it's actually 6 inches from the tank. So please don't try to pour water into your tank 6 feet away. 6 inches. So what that does is it breaks the water surface, and that causes an oxygen and CO2 exchange, which adds more oxygen to the water. Just keep doing that. Do that several times to break the surface agitation there. And what you're doing is you're releasing the CO2 and adding oxygen into the water as the bubbles come back up and break the surface. And you just keep doing that. So that's another way that you can add oxygen to your tanks. Now again, you have to do this every 10 to 15 minutes. So it's a last resort if you don't have any other way to take care of your fish and make sure that they breathe during a power outage. Now keep in mind that if you have fish like I do and you got shrimp in the tank, the light from over here is actually is okay. But keep in mind, if you have fish in your tank and shrimp and you don't feed them, they get a little hungry. So I may not have any shrimp left in my tank. That's the price I have to take to keep my fish alive. That's fine. Shrimp that we have, they breed pretty quickly. So hopefully after the power comes back on tomorrow or 24 hours from now, who knows, it's scheduled for several hours down the road, but hopefully we will be able to replace that colony that we have in there, and our fish will be happy. But the main thing is that you don't want to lose all your fish. I've lost my fish before whenever there was a power outage because I didn't know how to take care of them, and I don't want to come across that again. So when I say I failed in the past with a power outage, what happened was that my pumps that I had on my aquarium for my filters, they were on the outside of the tank. So whenever there's a power outage, if you're not diligent and actually start pouring water back into the back, it has a hard time to restart. So what I recommend is that if you are starting in the hobby, to avoid having to go and put water into the back of your hang on the back filter every single time there's a power outage, get a hang on the back filter where the pump itself is submerged in the water, or an internal filter, or sponge filters. There's so many different things out there that work. I'll show you what I have here on my tank, and then what I got on the 40 gallon here, and then we'll go back to what you do during a power outage. So in my tank here, you'll see that I have a hang on the back filter, and it automatically starts when there's a power outage because the pump is right there in the water. This is a Seachay Tidal from Seachem, so it's a Tidal 110. Alright, we haven't had any problems with it at all. I mean, you got to periodically clean the blades and stuff on the pump, but that's pretty normal. And then here on our 40 gallon breeder in the back, you'll see back there, that is a Seachay Advanced, or Shark Advanced 800. And again, the pump itself is submerged in the water, so anytime there's a power outage, it automatically comes back on and doesn't need to be filled back up. Now, one way around that, if you don't like the internal or the hang on the back, if you can see back there in the back there, and right over here, we also got sponge filters in there. Those can also be used, and whenever the power comes back on, they start right back up, no problem. Alright, so let's get back to what you do during a power outage. These alternatives, like I said, these things, these little bitty aerators, hush bubbles, and what's the other one here?
Baby bubbles.
The baby bubbles, they're pretty cheap. You can get them at Walmart for $6 to $20. The baby bubbles are about $6-7, and that's currently. And then they have two other sizes. This big one down here that I had, it's for a 10-gallon tank, but again, remember, you're just trying to add air temporarily so that you can keep your fish alive long enough so that the power can come back on. I recommend getting a battery powered backup that can run intermittently, but it's for the size of your tank. Other than that, wish us luck here at Noob Aquatics, keeping our fish alive over the next 24 hours. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day. Now we're back from the power outage, and we wanted to kind of give you a heads up as to what we did and how our fish did during the power outage. So let's take a look here. Alright. So after the power outage, we had to go and replace some of those cheaper bubblers that we bought from Walmart, so the emergency ones in a pinch. So what we did was, for all of our tanks, I went and I purchased some AQQA air pumps that have battery backups, and I'll show you what they are. So you'll see the white air stone back there, that is what it's connected to. I have the Aquarium Co-op sponge filter connected to it, and you can see it produces quite a bit of bubbles. So let me show you where they're at. So back here you can see the one on the left and the one on the right. So the one on the left is a 2.5 watt pump. The one on the right, or actually no, let me scratch that. The one on the left is a 1.7 watt pump. The one on the right is a 5 watt pump, and that's powering the 75 gallon aquarium and the 40 gallon breeder. And you can see in the 40 gallon breeder in the back, it's producing quite a bit of bubbles on that air stone back there. And then of course we did the same thing for several of our other tanks. So under here you'll see that there's another AQQA pump right there. This one here. Alright, this is a 2.5 watt, so that's what this one is here. We got that powering my homemade sponge filter right there. Over here in the puffer tank, Say hello to the puffers. They're gonna all come up here and say hi to the camera. Boom, boom, boom. All right, these are wild puffers. We have what looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4 males and 2 females in there. Not a very good combination, but that's just kind of what we got. And you can see they really like to get into the camera here. But there's another one of the homemade sponge filters using just regular old filter media. And of course that's the backup power. So you can see here, this is where it is here. All right, that's our puffer food. So basically ram's horn snails and pond snails just growing out in there. And if you look, you can see there's lots of them. This is our grow out tank for our, if you can see them, Artemia, or otherwise known as brine shrimp. Alright, so that's what we got going on here. And you can see back here in our 10-gallon tanks, the sponge filter from Aquarium Co-op back there is also being powered by an AQQA 1.7 watt battery backup. Same thing for this tank here. Alright, you'll see it's right there. And it's powering it right there. Same thing, 1.7 watt. And there's our last tank here. It's being powered by a 1.7 watt as well. And I'll show you that back there in the back if we can see it. Other side, there it is. Alrighty. Alright, so that's what we did after the power outage. We went and replaced those, I can't even know what they're called, but the ones from Walmart. We went and replaced those battery powered ones with ones that are can be used for the tanks by themselves, and when the power goes out they automatically come on and stay on. Now the 1.7s, they can go up to 20 to 30 hours at full blast. The 2.5s that we have on our grow out tank and the puffer tanks, they can go up to about 17 to 20 hours, and then of course the ones on the 40 and 75, they can go up to 14. Now we're going to set those anytime we leave the house and we're gone for a long extended period of time. We will actually set those to intermittent so that they will last up to 20 hours. So right now they're set to full blast because we like the air. Now one thing we've learned is that when you have extra air in your aquarium, you are actually introducing also more CO2. Now these are low-tech tanks, and because of that, we want our plants to grow and thrive. All right, you can see how they are. And the more air that you bring in, the more oxygen exchange, the more CO2 exchange also. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So yeah, so that's what we did with our power outage, and everything here survived. So like I said, following those tips and making sure you have some kind of backup plan, or at least an emergency backup plan on where you can go to get pumps in the need. And like I said, those minnow pumps that you can get from Walmart, they work great if you're just trying to keep them alive for a day or two. Now they're not a permanent thing, so after about a week your fish would start probably losing oxygen if you decide to use those. But again, that's what you can do in a pinch. Thanks for coming to Noob Aquatics, and we hope that you learned something and how to prepare and get ready for a power outage.